I never thought I'd be the type of person to cut off my own sister. Growing up, Amanda was my hero, 5 years older, infinitely cooler, and the one who taught me everything from applying eyeliner to standing up to bullies. But that was before I found the original will hidden in a rusted metal box in my parents' attic, before I realized that the past 20 years of my life had been built on an elaborate lie. The day started like any other Tuesday. Spring cleaning at my parents' old farmhouse, a chore I'd taken on since they passed, as Amanda was too busy with her real estate empire in the city. The farmhouse had been in our family for generations, and though Amanda managed the property legally, I was the one who kept it from falling apart. Our arrangement seemed fair at the time. She handled the finances and legal matters while I maintained the physical property. At least, that's what I thought was fair until that fateful Tuesday in April. The attic was stifling, dust particles dancing in the slivers of light that penetrated through the small window. I'd been sorting through old Christmas decorations when my hand knocked against a loose floorboard near the chimney stack. Something about the hollow sound it made caught my attention. I probably should have ignored it, sometimes ignorance truly is bliss, but curiosity got the better of me. Prying up the board revealed a small cavity and within it, a rusted metal box with our father's initials engraved on top, JTW. James Thomas Wilson. Dad had been gone for 8 years now, Mom for 5. I remember running my fingers over those letters, feeling a strange connection to him, before opening the box. Inside were several documents yellowed with age. On top was an envelope with final will and testament, written in my father's unmistakable handwriting. My heart skipped a beat. I already knew what was in my parents' will. Amanda had shown me the documents after Dad died. The farm would stay in the family, but Amanda would manage it since she had the head for business, while I would receive a modest monthly stipend as long as I continued to maintain the property. It wasn't ideal, but it seemed reasonable given Amanda's financial acumen and my attachment to our childhood home. But the document I held in my trembling hands told a completely different story. In the event of both our deaths, the farm and all associated assets are to be divided equally between our daughters, Amanda Lynn Wilson and Eleanor Jane Wilson. I read that line 7 times, my breath coming in short gasps. Equal. The word jumped off the page, mocking the past 8 years of my life. According to this will, dated just 3 months before Dad's death, I wasn't just the caretaker of my family legacy, I was a co-owner. I sat back against a dusty old trunk, mind racing. If this was the real will, then what was the document Amanda had shown me? The one that had been executed by the family lawyer, the one that had shaped my entire adult life? The implications hit me like a physical blow. The stipend Amanda had been giving me, $500 a month that barely covered my basic needs after I'd put money back into the farm, wasn't charity from a generous sister. It was a fraction of what was rightfully mine. My phone rang, shattering the heavy silence of the attic. Amanda's face lit up my screen. "Hey Ellie. Just checking in on the spring cleaning. Find anything worth keeping this time? Or is it all going to Goodwill?" Her voice was bright, cheerful. The voice of someone who had no idea their carefully constructed world was about to implode. Actually, my voice cracked. I cleared my throat. I found something interesting. A metal box with some old documents. There was the slightest pause before she responded, so brief I might have imagined it. "Oh? What kind of documents?" Her tone was carefully casual. "Dad's will." The words hung between us, heavy with accusation. The silence that followed lasted long enough for me to know. She didn't need to ask which will or why it mattered. She knew exactly what I'd found. "Ellie, listen to me. Whatever you found, it's probably just an old draft. The executed will is what matters legally. You know that, right?" I closed my eyes, fighting against the tears that threatened to spill. "This one is dated 3 months before he died, Amanda. And it's notarized." Another pause. "I'm coming over. Don't do anything with those papers. They'll just confuse things." She hung up before I could respond. I spent the next 2 hours in a daze, reading and rereading the will, discovering other documents in the box, bank statements showing the farm's income, far more substantial than I'd been led to believe, and a letter addressed to both of us from Dad. "My dearest girls, if you're reading this, something has happened to both your mother and me. I hope you're finding strength in each other. Family is everything, never forget that. Amanda, your business sense makes me proud every day. But remember that intelligence without compassion is a hollow achievement. Eleanor, your gentle heart and connection to this land are your greatest strengths. Together, you two balance each other perfectly. This farm is your legacy equally. Work together to preserve it, honor it, but never let it come between you. Material things fade, sisterhood is forever. With all my love, Dad. I was still holding this letter when I heard Amanda's BMW crunch up the gravel driveway. I quickly placed everything back in the box and headed downstairs to meet her. Amanda burst through the door in full power mode. Designer blazer, perfectly styled hair. The confident stride of someone used to controlling every room she entered. But I could see the tension in her jaw, the slight widening of her eyes when she spotted the metal box in my hands. Hey, let's sit down and talk about this. She gestured toward the kitchen table, the same table where we'd sat for countless family dinners, where Mom had taught me to bake, where Dad had helped with homework. Now it would be the setting for a confrontation 20 years in the making. I placed the box on the table between us, a physical manifestation of the barrier that had always existed between my sister and me, a barrier I had never fully recognized until now. Why? It was the only word I could manage. Amanda sighed, running a manicured hand through her hair. It's complicated, Ellie. Try me, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. After Dad's diagnosis, he was confused, making rash decisions. She spoke carefully, watching my reaction. The will you found was written during a bad period. He wasn't thinking clearly about what was best for the farm, for the family legacy. So you forged a new one. It wasn't a question. Her eyes flashed. I protected our inheritance. This farm would have been sold off in pieces if you had equal say. You've never understood the business side, Ellie. You'd have run it into the ground with your sentimental attachment to every weathered fence post and rusted tractor. The casual cruelty of her assessment stung, but not as much as the realization that had been forming since I found the box. This isn't about the farm. It's about control. It's always been about control with you. Don't be dramatic, she scoffed. I've taken care of you. Made sure you had a place to live, money too. Money that was mine to begin with. I slammed my hand on the table, making the box jump. You've been stealing from me for 8 years, Amanda. Stealing and making me thank you for the scraps. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing. I've been managing an inheritance you would have squandered. Someone had to be the adult. I was 26 when Dad died. A college graduate with a full-time job I gave up to take care of this place. To honor what I thought were his wishes. My voice broke. You made me feel like I wasn't capable. Like I should be grateful for your generosity. Do you have any idea what that does to someone? Year after year. For a moment I thought I saw a flicker of remorse cross her face. But it vanished quickly, replaced by the cool, calculating look I'd seen her use in business negotiations. What exactly do you want, Eleanor? Money. Fine. I can increase your stipend. Maybe get you a newer car. But the management of the farm stays with me. That's non-negotiable. I stared at her, truly seeing her for perhaps the first time in my life. This woman who shared my blood, my childhood memories, my parents' love. Yet who could sit across from me and continue to manipulate and minimize after being caught in a devastating betrayal. I want what Dad intended, I said quietly. Equal ownership. Equal say. Equal respect. She laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. After all these years? You don't know the first thing about running this property as a business. You'd undo everything I've built. Everything you've stolen, I corrected. And you're wrong. I know more than you think. I've been managing the day-to-day operations of this farm for 8 years. I know every inch of these 300 acres. I know the seasonal workers by name, their children, their stories. What do you know besides the numbers in the bank account? A flush crept up her neck. Don't push me on this, Ellie. You won't like where it leads. Is that a threat? It's reality. Challenge the executed will legally, and you could end up with nothing. The farm might have to be sold to cover legal fees. Is that what you want? To destroy everything out of spite. The irony of her accusation wasn't lost on me. Spite was exactly what had driven her actions, spite or greed or perhaps both. But I wasn't going to sink to her level. I'm not challenging anything today, I said, standing up. But I am going to take these documents to a lawyer. My lawyer. And then we'll talk about next steps. You're making a mistake, she warned, rising to her feet. Family should work things out privately. I laughed bitterly. Family shouldn't steal from each other in the first place. I did what was necessary. Dad was dying, barely coherent most days. Mom was too overwhelmed with grief to think straight. Someone had to take control. So you falsified legal documents? Lied to me for 8 years? Kept me dependent on your handouts? I shook my head in disbelief. Was any of it real, Amanda? The sisterly advice? The shoulder to cry on? Or was it all just a way to keep me compliant? She had the audacity to look wounded. Of course it was real. You're my little sister. I love you. Everything I've done has been to protect you. And this farm. Protect me from what? Financial independence? Self-respect. I gathered the box, clutching it to my chest. I think you should leave. Ellie, be reasonable. Leave? I repeated, my voice stronger now. We'll talk after I've spoken with a lawyer. Her expression hardened. Fine. But remember, I've been managing this property and its finances for 8 years. There's a paper trail for everything. And it all supports the executed will. Think carefully before you start a battle you can't win. After she left, I sank back into the kitchen chair, emotionally drained. The farmhouse suddenly felt different. Not just my childhood home or the property I'd been maintaining, but partially mine in a way I'd never allowed myself to believe. I made myself a cup of tea and walked out onto the porch, looking out over the rolling fields that stretched to the horizon. Spring planting would begin soon. The old apple orchard needed pruning. The south fence needed repairs before we moved the cattle to that pasture. These tasks had always been my duties in exchange for the roof over my head. Now I realized they were my responsibilities as an owner who had been denied her rightful place. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the fields, I made a decision. This wasn't just about money or property, it was about justice. About standing up for myself after years of quiet acquiescence. About honoring what our father had actually wanted for both his daughters. The next morning I called Michael Harrington, a lawyer in the neighboring county who had no connections to Amanda or her network. His secretary sounded surprised when I insisted on an appointment that same day, but something in my voice must have conveyed the urgency because she squeezed me in for the last slot. Michael's office was modest, nothing like the sleek downtown firm that handled Amanda's business affairs. He was older than I expected, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately put me at ease. I placed the box on his desk and told him everything. As he examined the documents, his expression grew increasingly troubled. Ms. Wilson, if these are authentic, and they certainly appear to be, then you have a very serious case of fraud and possibly elder abuse, depending on the circumstances surrounding the creation of the executed will. Elder abuse? I echoed, the term hitting me like a physical blow. He nodded grimly. If your sister took advantage of your father's diminished capacity to create a fraudulent will that benefited her financially, that's elder abuse in addition to multiple counts of fraud. I don't want her to go to jail, I said quickly, surprising myself with how true it was despite everything. I just want what's rightfully mine. That might not be entirely up to you once these allegations come to light, he warned. But let's focus on establishing the authenticity of these documents first. I'd like to contact the notary listed here and the witnesses. My stomach knotted with anxiety. And if they confirm it's real? Then we move forward with challenging the fraudulent will. But Ms. Wilson. He leaned forward, his expression serious. You should prepare yourself. This will get messy and personal. Your sister won't give up control easily, and family legal battles are often the most bitter. I thought about the sister who had taught me to ride a bike, who had held me when our first dog died, who had cheered at my college graduation. The same sister who had systematically deceived me for nearly a decade, who had stolen my inheritance, who had manipulated me into a position of dependency. I understand, I said quietly, but I need to do this. Not just for the money or the farm, but because I struggled to articulate the feeling that had been growing since I found the box. Because you need to reclaim your agency, Michael finished, surprising me with his insight. I see this more often than you might think. The damage in these situations isn't just financial. It's psychological. Your sister didn't just take your inheritance. She took your autonomy. I nodded, tears welling up despite my best efforts to remain composed. Exactly. He passed me a tissue. Take the weekend to think about it. This isn't a decision to make in the heat of emotion. Call me Monday if you want to proceed. I didn't need the weekend. I already knew. But I agreed, thanking him for his time. As I drove back to the farm, my farm, I felt something shifting inside me. The hurt and betrayal were still there. But alongside them was something new. Determination. For too long, I'd accepted Amanda's assessment of me as the impractical dreamer. The little sister who needed guidance and protection. I'd internalized her view until it became my own. No more. I was Eleanor Jane Wilson, co-owner of Wilson Family Farms. And I was about to take back everything that had been stolen from me. My inheritance, my confidence, and my future. The farmhouse was dark when I pulled into the driveway, but a familiar car was parked by the barn. Thomas, our farm manager and my closest friend for the past 5 years, was sitting on the porch steps. Figured you might need a friendly face tonight, he said, standing as I approached. Amanda called. She was upset. I sighed. Of course she had called Thomas. She'd probably called everyone in our social circle, laying the groundwork to paint me as irrational, ungrateful, maybe even unstable. Did she tell you what happened? I asked, unlocking the front door and gesturing for him to follow me inside. She said you found some old papers that confused you, and now you're threatening legal action. His tone was carefully neutral, but I could tell he was concerned. Want to tell me your side? I flipped on the kitchen lights and placed the metal box on the table, the centerpiece of this unfolding drama. I found Dad's real will. The one that gives me equal ownership of everything. Amanda forged the will that's been executed. His eyes widened. Jesus, Ellie. Are you sure? I opened the box and handed him the notarized will. See for yourself. Thomas read silently, his expression darkening with each line. When he looked up, the disbelief in his eyes had been replaced with anger. That manipulative. He caught himself. Sorry. I know she's your sister, but this is criminal, I finished. Yeah, I know. He ran a hand through his hair, processing. So what are you going to do? Fight back. The certainty in my voice surprised us both. I've spent 8 years living on crumbs from my own table, Thomas, believing I wasn't capable or deserving of more. That ends now. He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Good. It's about damn time. You believe me? Just like that. A sad smile crossed his face. Ellie, I've watched you pour your heart and soul into this farm, while Amanda swoops in for the profitable moments and big decisions. I've seen how she talks down to you, how she dismisses your ideas even when they're better than hers. He gestured toward the window, where the successful lavender field I'd planted against Amanda's protests was just visible in the moonlight. Of course I believe you. The validation from someone who knew us both, who had seen our dynamic firsthand, unleashed something in me. I sank into a chair, hands covering my face as silent tears came. Not tears of weakness or defeat, tears of relief, of being seen, of knowing I wasn't crazy for feeling used and diminished all these years. Thomas sat beside me, a solid, reassuring presence. What can I do to help? I wiped my eyes and looked at him, really looked at him. The man who had started as our hired farm manager but had become so much more. My confidant. My support system. The person who saw capabilities in me that even I didn't recognize. Just stay, I said quietly. The storm that's coming. I'll need allies. You have one, he promised. Whatever happens next. As we sat in the quiet kitchen, the weight of the day's revelations settling around us, I realized something important. This wasn't just about reclaiming what was legally mine. It was about reclaiming myself, the person I might have become if I hadn't been systematically undermined by the one person I trusted most. The road ahead would be difficult. Amanda wouldn't yield without a fight. There would be tears and accusations, lawyers and possibly courtrooms. Family friends would be forced to take sides. The comfortable, if unequal, equilibrium of our lives would be shattered beyond repair. But sitting there, with the evidence of my sister's betrayal in a box before me and a true friend beside me, I felt ready for whatever came next. For the first time in 8 years, perhaps longer, I was making a choice fully my own. I was choosing to fight. The weekend passed in a blur of emotion and preparation. I spent hours poring over farm records I'd never been allowed to see before, accessing accounts using passwords I'd found in Dad's box. What I discovered made my blood boil. The farm was generating nearly 5 times the income Amanda had reported to me. The struggling family property that supposedly justified my meager stipend was actually a thriving business with diverse revenue streams. Crop leases, the cattle operation, equipment rentals, and even a cell tower contract Amanda had never mentioned. By Sunday evening, I'd compiled a detailed spreadsheet showing the discrepancy between what I'd been told and reality. The total amount she'd effectively stolen from me over 8 years was staggering, well into the high 6 figures. Monday morning arrived with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I called Michael Harrington as soon as his office opened. "I'm ready," I told him without preamble. "I want to proceed." "I thought you might," he replied, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Can you bring those financial records you mentioned? I'd like to include everything in our initial filing." We set an appointment for that afternoon. As I hung up, my phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "We need to talk. Dinner tonight at Riverside Grill. 7 p.m. Important. The Riverside Grill was Amanda's power spot. The upscale restaurant where she took clients to close deals, where the maitre d' knew her by name and always gave her the best table. Of course she would choose neutral territory with built-in allies. I texted back a simple response. "Can't make it. Have plans." Her reply was immediate. "Cancel them. This isn't optional, Ellie." The commanding tone, the assumption that my plans were disposable. It was all so familiar, so Amanda. But this time, instead of the usual rush to accommodate her, I felt only resolution strengthen inside me. "My plans involve a lawyer. But feel free to have him contact yours." I turned off my phone after that, not interested in the barrage of calls and texts that would undoubtedly follow. Instead, I walked the property, taking in every acre with new eyes, owner's eyes. The morning sun bathed the old red barn in golden light, making the weathered wood glow. The fields stretched out in neat rows, the early spring plantings just beginning to show green. This land had been in our family for 4 generations. Now it was my turn to steward it, as Dad had intended. Thomas found me by the north pond, skipping stones across the still water. "You look different today," he observed, selecting a flat stone from the shoreline. "I feel different." I watched his stone bounce 5 times before sinking. "Like I've woken up from a long sleep." He nodded, understanding without needing more explanation. "Amanda called me this morning. Offered me a significant raise to help Ellie see reason." I wasn't surprised, but the confirmation of her tactics still stung. "And," he skipped another stone. "I told her I work for Wilson Family Farms, not Amanda Wilson personally." A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. "She didn't take it well." I laughed, a genuine laugh that felt foreign after days of tension. "I bet she didn't. She also mentioned she's bringing Jack Reynolds to your dinner tonight." My amusement evaporated. Jack Reynolds was the family lawyer who had handled the fraudulent will, a longtime friend of Amanda's and one of the most formidable attorneys in the county. "She's trying to intimidate me." Thomas nodded. Classic Amanda. Show of force. "Well, I'm not going, so it won't work." I threw another stone, watching it sink after just 2 skips. "I'm meeting with Michael Harrington today." "Good. Just be careful, Ellie. Amanda has a lot of connections, and she's been building her narrative a lot longer than you have." His concern was justified. In our small community, Amanda was the successful Wilson sister, the businesswoman, the philanthropist on various community boards, the one who had sacrificed to keep the family farm instead of selling it after our parents died. I was just the quiet caretaker, the sister who couldn't make it in the real world and needed Amanda's support. "I know," I said quietly, "but I have something she doesn't." "What's that?" "The truth." I met his eyes. "And you." The moment stretched between us, weighted with things unsaid. Thomas had been my rock for years, but always carefully maintaining the employer-employee boundary Amanda had established. Now, with those power dynamics shifting, something else seemed to be shifting too. He broke the spell first, clearing his throat. "I should check on the new irrigation system. Text me after your meeting with Harrington." I nodded, watching him walk away, wondering if he felt it too. This subtle but significant change between us. My meeting with Michael Harrington was both empowering and sobering. The authenticity of Dad's will was confirmed. The notary remembered the signing clearly, as it was one of her first official acts. Both witnesses were still alive and willing to testify. But challenging an executed will, even a fraudulent one, would be a complex legal battle. Your sister will claim your father changed his mind, that he signed the later will with full capacity, Michael explained. She'll have medical experts testify that he was lucid. Witnesses who'll swear he wanted her to manage everything. But it's not true, I insisted. Truth and legal outcomes don't always align perfectly, he cautioned. But the evidence is compelling, especially with the financial records you've brought. This shows a pattern of deception consistent with the will forgery. He outlined our strategy: file for an emergency injunction to freeze the farm's assets, depose Amanda and Jack Reynolds about the circumstances of the later will, and push for a full accounting of all farm income and expenses since our father's death. This won't be quick or easy, he warned. And once we file, there's no going back. Your relationship with your sister will likely be irreparably damaged. I thought about Amanda's smug face across the kitchen table, her casual dismissal of my capabilities, her years of calculated deception. The relationship was already damaged, I said. I just didn't know it. When I returned to the farm that evening, Amanda's BMW was in the driveway again. This time, Jack Reynolds' sleek Audi was parked beside it. They had come to me since I wouldn't come to them. I steeled myself before entering, reminding myself that this was my home, my property, as much as it was hers. I didn't need to be intimidated in my own kitchen. They were sitting at the table when I walked in, Amanda immaculately dressed as always, Jack with his silver hair and carefully cultivated trustworthy demeanor. A folder of documents lay between them. Finally, Amanda said, checking her watch. We've been waiting for over an hour. I wasn't aware we had an appointment, I replied, hanging my jacket by the door with deliberate casualness. Jack Reynolds stood, extending his hand. Eleanor. It's good to see you again, though I wish it were under better circumstances. I ignored his hand. Mr. Reynolds. I'm surprised to see you here, given the circumstances. Isn't there a conflict of interest in representing my sister in a matter where you helped execute a potentially fraudulent will? His practiced smile faltered slightly. I'm not here as Amanda's attorney tonight, just as a family friend trying to help two sisters work through a misunderstanding. Forgery and fraud aren't misunderstandings, I countered, taking a seat across from them. But I'm listening. Amanda slid the folder toward me. We're prepared to offer a very generous settlement. The farmhouse becomes yours outright, your monthly stipend doubles, and you receive a lump sum of $200,000. In exchange for? You drop this ridiculous crusade and sign a confidentiality agreement, she said smoothly. The executed will stands. I maintain management control of the farm operations, but you get financial security and the house you love. Everyone wins. I opened the folder, skimming the legal document inside. It was all there in black and white, their offer to buy my silence and compliance. This is worth millions, I said, closing the folder. The farm, the operations, the land. And you're offering me a fraction of its value. Don't be greedy, Ellie, Amanda chided. $200,000 is life-changing money for someone like you. Someone like me, I repeated, the condescension landing like a slap. You mean someone you've deliberately kept financially dependent for 8 years? Someone you've convinced isn't capable of more. Jack cleared his throat. Eleanor, I understand you're upset, but consider the practical aspects. Contesting the will could take years, drain resources from the farm itself, and there's no guarantee you'd win. Interesting position from someone who might face disbarment for his role in executing a forged legal document, I observed mildly. His face flushed. That's a serious accusation, young lady. Yes, it is, I agreed. One I'm prepared to make formally in court if necessary. I pushed the folder back across the table. The answer is no. Amanda's composed facade cracked slightly. You're being foolish. This is more than fair. Fair would be what Dad intended, equal ownership. Fair would be returning the hundreds of thousands you've stolen from me over the years. Fair would be acknowledging what you did and apologizing. She laughed, a brittle sound. Apologizing? For what? Saving this farm from your mismanagement? For ensuring our family legacy continued? No. I met her gaze steadily. For betraying not just me but Mom and Dad. For using Dad's death to grab power and control. For making me believe I was less than I am for 8 years. Oh, spare me the therapy talk. Amanda stood, gathering the folder. You have 24 hours to reconsider. After that, the offer expires and we do this the hard way. It's already expired, I said quietly. And my lawyer will be contacting you tomorrow with our filing. Jack looked concerned. Eleanor, who exactly is representing you? Michael Harrington. Amanda scoffed. That small-town nobody? Jack eats lawyers like him for breakfast. I smiled. We'll see. But unlike you, I'm not banking on connections and power plays. I'm banking on the truth. After they left, I sat alone in the kitchen, trembling slightly from the confrontation but feeling stronger than I had in years. The old Eleanor would have capitulated, taken the offer, believed Amanda's assurances that it was for the best. But that Eleanor was gone. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. How did it go? I smiled, typing back. Asterisk, they came here with a settlement offer. I declined. Asterisk. His response was immediate. Asterisk, proud of you. Want company? Asterisk. 20 minutes later, we were sitting on the porch swing. The same swing where Dad used to tell us stories on summer evenings. I filled Thomas in on everything. The meeting with Michael, Amanda and Jack's visit, the insulting offer. 200,000, he whistled. That means they're scared. You think so? He nodded. Amanda doesn't part with money easily, especially not six-figure sums. She knows your case is strong. Or she thinks she can buy me off cheaply. Thomas turned to face me directly. Ellie, there's something you should know. Something that might help your case. My pulse quickened. What is it? 3 years ago, Amanda asked me to falsify some of the farm production records. Show lower yields, higher expenses. When I refused, she did it herself. I have copies of both sets of books. I stared at him. Why didn't you tell me? He looked away. She threatened my job. And he hesitated. She implied she'd make sure you never believed me if I tried to tell you. Said you'd always choose your sister over the hired help. The manipulation was so typical of Amanda it made my chest ache. She was wrong. I would have believed you. Would you? Back then. His question wasn't accusatory, just honest. I considered it carefully. I don't know. She had me pretty thoroughly convinced that I needed her. That I couldn't trust my own judgment. That's why I didn't say anything. But now. He pulled a USB drive from his pocket. These records might help your case. Show a pattern of financial manipulation. I took the drive, our fingers brushing. Thank you. For this, and for sticking by me even when I couldn't see what was happening. I've always seen you clearly, Ellie. Even when you couldn't see yourself. The weight of his words hung in the night air between us. On impulse, I leaned forward and kissed him. A brief, gentle meeting of lips that somehow felt like both a beginning and an overdue acknowledgement. When I pulled back, his expression was stunned but pleased. What was that for? For being the one person in my life who never tried to make me smaller, I said simply. He smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. I like who you are at full size. The next morning, Michael Harrington filed our petition contesting the fraudulent will, including a request for an emergency injunction to freeze all farm assets pending resolution. By noon, the news had spread through our small community. By evening, the battle lines were being drawn. Amanda launched a full offensive, calls to mutual friends painting me as unstable, ungrateful, possibly suffering from some kind of breakdown. She claimed I was being manipulated by Thomas, who had always had designs on the farm. She even called our mother's sister in Florida, who promptly phoned me in tears asking what on earth I was thinking, suing my own sister. It was exactly as Thomas had predicted. Amanda had been cultivating her narrative for years, while I was just finding my voice. But I refused to play by her rules. Instead of defending myself to everyone who called, I simply directed them to the court filings, which were now public record. Read the evidence yourself, became my mantra. Then decide. 3 days after our filing, Judge Marion Hartley granted our emergency injunction. Amanda was temporarily removed from all farm accounts, and a court-appointed auditor was assigned to review the financial records. It was our first victory, but the war was just beginning. Amanda's response was swift and vicious. She countersued for slander, claiming I was damaging her professional reputation with false accusations. She filed for a restraining order to keep Thomas off the property, claiming he was stealing farm equipment. She even attempted to have the farmhouse listed for sale, arguing that as the legal executor, she had the right to liquidate assets. Each move was calculated to drain my resources and resolve. Each was met with a calm, measured legal response from Michael Harrington, whose small-town demeanor masked a razor-sharp legal mind. But the emotional toll was tremendous. Friends I'd known since childhood stopped speaking to me. Local businesses that depended on Amanda's patronage suddenly couldn't accommodate my orders. The farmhouse was vandalized one night. Nothing serious, just eggs thrown at the porch, but the message was clear. I was now an outsider in my own community. Thomas became my rock, managing the farm operations while I navigated the legal battles. Our relationship deepened amid the chaos, providing a center of calm in the storm. But even he wasn't immune to Amanda's tactics. One evening, he arrived at the farmhouse looking troubled. Amanda offered me triple my salary to come work directly for her new agricultural consulting business. My stomach dropped. Are you considering it? He looked offended. Of course not. But that's not all. She mentioned she has photos of us together. Said they could be misinterpreted to suggest I've been taking advantage of you emotionally during a vulnerable time. She's threatening to paint you as a predator? The depth of Amanda's willingness to destroy lives to maintain control stunned me anew. Basically, said it would be a shame if those photos made their way to the judge considering your mental competence to challenge the will. I sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. She really will stop at nothing. Thomas sat beside me taking my hand. This is good news in a way. How on earth is this good news? Because desperate people make mistakes. She's throwing everything at us because she's running out of legitimate options. He was right. 2 weeks later, in a deposition that would later become crucial to our case, Jack Reynolds cracked under Michael's relentless questioning and admitted he had concerns about the circumstances surrounding the will execution. He stopped short of admitting knowledge of fraud but acknowledged that Amanda had brought him a document already signed by our father, with no witnesses present, asking him to handle the legalities. It was the crack in Amanda's armor we'd been waiting for. Michael immediately filed for summary judgment, based on this new evidence. The day before the hearing, I received a text from an unknown number. * Northfield, Old Oak Tree, 10 p.m. Come alone if you want the whole truth. * I showed it to Thomas, who immediately objected. It's too risky. It could be anyone. Or it could be someone with information we need, I countered. The Northfield is on our property. You could wait nearby just in case. He didn't like it but agreed to the compromise. That night, as I approached the ancient oak that had stood sentinel over our farm for centuries, I was surprised to find a familiar figure waiting. Diane Reynolds, Jack's wife and Amanda's longtime friend. Thank you for coming, she said. Her voice hushed though we were far from any listening ears. Why all the secrecy? I asked. She glanced around nervously. Because what I'm about to tell you will end my marriage and possibly ruin Jack's career. But I can't stay silent anymore. My heart pounded. I'm listening. Jack and Amanda. She took a deep breath. They've been having an affair for years. Since before your father died. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. What? She nodded grimly. It started when she hired him for some business matter. I found out about 6 months before your father's diagnosis. Jack swore it was over, that he was recommitted to our marriage. Her laugh was bitter. He lied, of course. What does this have to do with the will? I asked, though I was beginning to see the connection. Everything. Amanda knew I'd found out about them. She knew I'd divorced Jack and he'd lose his partnership at the firm if it became public. So when your father's health declined, she had leverage over Jack. Diane's eyes glistened with tears in the moonlight. He helped her create the fake will to protect himself as much as to help her. Do you have proof of this? She handed me a small envelope. Emails between them discussing the plan. Jack was stupid enough to use his personal account. I've kept these for years as insurance, but what they did to you isn't right. Your parents wanted you to have equal share in this farm. I opened the envelope, skimming the emails with shaking hands. It was all there, explicit discussions of creating a more suitable will, while Dad was too sick to interfere. Planning sessions for how to keep me manageable after the fact. Why are you giving me this now? I asked, looking up at her. Because Amanda's gone too far. The things she's saying about you in town. The threats against that farm manager you're seeing. Diane shook her head. I kept quiet for my marriage, but I can't be complicit in destroying your life too. I carefully tucked the envelope into my jacket. This changes everything. Thank you. Don't thank me, she said quietly. I should have come forward years ago. The next morning, armed with this new evidence, Michael Harrington requested an emergency conference with the judge before the scheduled hearing. Judge Hartley, after reviewing the emails, ordered Amanda and Jack to appear for questioning that afternoon. I'll never forget the look on Amanda's face when she walked into the courtroom and saw me sitting there with Michael, confident and prepared. For the first time in our adult lives, she appeared uncertain, almost afraid. The judge didn't mince words. Ms. Wilson, these emails suggest not only fraud in the execution of a will, but possible collusion and conspiracy between you and Mr. Reynolds. Do you wish to reconsider your position before we proceed? Amanda looked to Jack, who had gone ghostly pale. They both knew the game was up. Within hours, a settlement was reached. The fraudulent will was invalidated. The original will reinstated. I would receive back payments for my share of the farm income for the past 8 years, plus interest. Amanda would transfer management control to me, though she would retain her half ownership as specified in Dad's true will. As we left the courthouse, Amanda caught my arm. You've destroyed everything, she hissed, her composure finally cracking. Are you happy now? I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the anger, I could see something I'd never recognized before: fear. Fear of losing control, fear of not being enough, fear that had driven her to betray her own family. I didn't destroy anything, Amanda. You did that when you decided Dad's wishes didn't matter. When you decided I didn't matter. I was protecting our legacy, she insisted, but the words sounded hollow even to her. No, you were protecting your power, I corrected gently. But Dad was right, this farm needs both of us. Your business sense and my connection to the land. We could have been partners instead of this. For a moment I thought I saw a flicker of the sister I'd once adored, vulnerable, human, capable of regret. But it vanished quickly, replaced by the hard shell she'd cultivated for so long. I'll be contacting you through my new attorney, she said stiffly, turning away. I watched her walk to her car, knowing our relationship might never recover. The victory felt bittersweet. I'd gained my rightful inheritance but lost my only sibling. Thomas was waiting for me outside, leaning against his truck. How did it go? We won, I said simply. Everything Dad wanted will be honored. He pulled me into a hug, solid and warm. I never doubted you would. The farm is going to need a new official manager, I said, looking up at him. Someone who knows every acre, who treats the workers fairly, who sees the potential in things others miss. He smiled. I might know someone qualified for the job. The position comes with some complications, I warned. Namely, the boss might be falling in love with you. His eyes widened slightly before crinkling at the corners. That's not a complication. That's a benefit. 6 months later, the farm was thriving under our joint management. I'd implemented some of Amanda's more successful business strategies while adding my own innovations. An expanded lavender operation, farm-to-table partnerships with local restaurants, educational programs for school children. Thomas had moved into the farmhouse with me, our personal and professional partnership deepening with each passing day. Amanda had relocated permanently to the city, selling her share of the farm to me through a series of structured payments. Our communications remained strictly business, conducted primarily through lawyers. The wound was still too raw for anything more. One afternoon, as I was sorting through old boxes in Dad's study, I found a photograph I'd forgotten existed. Amanda and me as children, sitting on the very porch swing where Thomas and I now spent our evenings. We were laughing, arms around each other, identical gap-toothed smiles beaming at the camera. I traced the outline of our childish faces, wondering where those two loving sisters had gone, how we'd become so broken. The pain was still there, but something else too. A quiet acceptance that sometimes family stories don't have perfect endings. That evening, impulsively, I texted Amanda the photo with a simple message. I miss who we were. Hours passed with no response. I hadn't really expected one. But as Thomas and I sat watching the sunset from the porch, my phone buzzed. Me too. Just 2 words, but they carried the weight of possibility. Not forgiveness, not yet. Not reconciliation, perhaps not ever. But acknowledgement of a shared loss. A tiny bridge across a vast divide. I showed Thomas the message, tears blurring my vision. It's a start, he said gently, squeezing my hand. I nodded, watching the sun sink below the horizon, painting the fields in gold and shadow. This farm had witnessed 4 generations of Wilson triumphs and tragedies. It had survived drought and flood, market crashes and family feuds. It would survive this too. As for me, I was no longer the woman who had meekly accepted crumbs from her own table. I had reclaimed not just my inheritance but my voice, my worth, my future. The journey had cost more than I could have imagined, but sitting there with Thomas, looking out over land that was truly mine at last, I knew it had been worth every painful step. The truth had indeed set me free.